So, I imagine nobody's gonna be on right now, and I don't blame you. It's almost midnight, and I was just getting ready to go to sleep. But my first hit piece that I found, and I'm sure there are other um, hit pieces to be written yet, I'm sure, and not just hit pieces, good critical stuff. But I had to give kind of a live reaction to this because it's so funny. It's it, it's as if the Babylon Bee and the Onion were trying to create the most egregious caricature of all time, but sell it as serious. It is so funny. So, for those who don't know, here's a little backstory. I appeared on Leighton Flowers' YouTube channel, Soteriology 101, and we talked about divine sovereignty and human freedom. And by that, we spent a lot of time in the Gospel of John, specifically the prologue. And I just gave, here are my thoughts or his thoughts, and we had a good back and forth, and it was fun. Him and I don't agree on a bunch, I'm sure, but great time, great guy, love what he's doing, all that sort of stuff. And if you're in the chat, how's it all going? I'll put the live thingy on, make sure I can see. But anyway, whoever's watching, hello. And so I appeared on that. It was a great time. The feedback from rational people was very nice. I don't spend a whole lot of time in YouTube land or YouTube comment sections, but I made the mistake of Googling myself because I was curious. I want to see, am I out there about anything, right? And I came across, well, I don't know if I want to say their name. So here's the thing. If you want to read it, you can check my Twitter at Nick Quint. But a very well-known Reformed fundamentalist, well, probably fundamentalist, I don't know if they like that term or not, but in a certain city in North Carolina, Charlotte to be exact, released something on August 9th, and so let me go and actually look. Let me go and actually look right now. And let me actually go and look real quick. Let's see. Let's see. When Quint Leighton Flowers. Let's see when I come up. I appeared on, oh my goodness, I'm not even at the top of the list. Oh my gosh. What kind of world is the algorithm in? Is the algorithm actually living in? Alright, so let's see. Oh my god, okay. So in the YouTube video for Leighton Flowers is called Nick Quint on Divine Sovereignty and Human Freedom. And it was streamed on August 4th. So this comes out about 5 days after. So the title of the article, and I guess we would call it a blog, is called, and this organization is not known for nuance and moderation. Leighton Flowers joins matriarchalist who took wife's last name to argue against God's sovereignty. I feel like, so let me read that to you again, dear beloved people who have nothing better to do on a Saturday night, Sunday morning. I got church in the morning too. Leighton Flowers joins They misspelled that. Matriarchist. Matriarchist. Okay, what? Okay, I'm sorry. I think I just skimmed over the fact that they got that wrong. I mean, I suppose it doesn't mean anything, but it was probably matriarchalist. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, Leighton Flowers joins matriarchist who took wife's last name to argue against God's sovereignty. Hi, Michelle. You couldn't do it. It probably had nothing better to do than come hang out, but welcome. And so I read that, and I feel like and I never thought I'd say this. And apologies for the weird way I'm talking. I brush my teeth and all that sort of stuff, and so my mouth's a little funky. I feel like I'm in a meme with Jordan Peterson. You know, Jordan Peterson says something, and then the woman says something, and Jordan Peterson's just like, you know, you know, something like, I think the meme goes something like, "I love children." Oh, so what you're saying is you hate adults? And Jordan Peterson, that's kind of what it feels like. But literally every sentence is hysterical. But we'll break down. This is so much fun. I love this. You know you've made it somehow when people write stuff like this about you. Okay. And so it begins with, "We need your support." And they go on a tirade about, "As big tech continues its crackdown on conservative blogs, our days on these platforms are numbered. Then basically subscribe to our mailing list and also consider a paid subscription for ad-free content delivered directly to you." So, you know, money. I'm glad they're getting paid off writing this. Nick Quint is the associate pastor of spiritual formation at First Baptist Church of the Redlands in Redland, California. You know, I'm not one to knock editors. I'm not particularly skilled at that. As every editor of any journal that has had the misprivilege of me sending stuff to them knows, but it's at the First Baptist Church of Redlands in Redlands, California. Quint is a matriarchist who not only sits under the leadership of a female pastor, something that the scriptures wholly reject, I'll disagree with them on that, but who also took his wife's last name when they married. And they show a picture of my pastor, Reverend Sean Zambrose, and then me. Quint, in a pamphlet titled "How I Submit to My Wife," and I always, looking back, I'm like, well, I don't like the second title, so I'm not gonna. I'll say it, but you'll hear me roll my eyes when I say it. How a feminist with a hairy chest chose to take his beloved's last name. Now, some people think it's cute. I look at it and go, boy, that just not for me. But technically, it's not a pamphlet; it's an article. And if they're going to be petty, I'm allowed to be petty. It's technically an article. It had a editor tell me what to change and all that sort of stuff, and I did. So it's not a pamphlet. It was published in a journal. Popular level, I admit, in Mutuality magazine. It was one of the first things I published, and I actually really liked it. I still do. Writes, quote, "I saw mutual submission as required for marriage, and I believe that it was the strongest measure of what I could do. I give of myself to her, and I honor her by esteeming her heritage, her culture, her family, by taking her last name." That sounds a lot like what Ephesians and 1 Peter are talking about, but I digress. So the next thing this says, besides completely giving up his biblical manhood in favor of cultural feminism, Quint is a heretic on the doctrine of hell as well. Now, my first thought is, besides completely giving up my biblical manhood, I realized I maybe misplaced my card for the membership to that specific club a while ago, but I don't see it as giving up my biblical manhood. That feels like the phrase biblical manhood sounds a little weird to me. In favor of cultural feminism. Well, if they knew what I thought on a lot of stuff, they would probably know I'm not big on cultural feminism, at least in how they see it. I'm a big believer in mutuality and all that sort of stuff, but anyway, I digress. They call me a heretic on the doctrine of hell as well. Now, by heretic, I don't know what they mean by that. Of course, I shouldn't say that. I know what they mean by it, but when it comes to creeds and councils, there's not a whole lot there, if we're just looking at it. And then Quint, like a close associate of his, Chris Date, is an annihilationist. Now, of course, I chuckle because I'm like, well, I'm not really associated with Rethinking Hell anymore, although I'm friends with most of those guys. And yeah, I don't know if Chris and I are close associates, we're more like friends. Associate sounds a little weird, but not to say we're not associates, but I'd call Chris a friend more than I would an associate. Not a knock on him, but just that's kind of what it is. According to Quint's LinkedIn page, he, quote, contributed the chapter Paul and the Annihilation of Death, which was, quote, partially based on an academic presentation I gave at the inaugural Rethinking Hell conference in Houston, Texas, July 2014. Ethan, you'll have to go back to the beginning of the video about 10 minutes ago. Trust me, if you think the Babylon Bee, but as filtered through Apologia or James White, is funny, just go back to the beginning. I explained it. It is the reason I'm up is one, I put the baby to bed, so giving up my biblical manhood by putting my son to bed so my wife can get some sleep. So okay, going to Quint's Nick LinkedIn page. Fine, it's public. I'm fine with that. I contributed a chat. I guess you're in California, so it's not 2 a.m. No, it's not. It is currently Sunday, 12 p.m. But it's funny. Paul and the Annihilation of Death is not my most well-known thing. It's one of those weird things where I'm like, I mean, I suppose that's probably the most recent thing. Although they could have just gone to my YouTube page. I got some stuff on that. Or it's just one of those where I'm like, boy, they just did a quick Google search and aha, this has the word annihilation in it. I mean, I wonder if I'm curious if they actually read that paper from my LinkedIn page. I don't know if it's even up. Of course, if they got the book, they can know. But anyway, okay, so that's that chapter. So, I don't know why that makes me a heretic. I'd like to actually hear why. I don't know why the chapter. I mean, Universalists, and even I think we've even had really progressive Christians and really conservative you can present a lot of things at the Rethinking Hell conferences. I mean, we had one entirely dedicated to Universalists. I'd say a quarter to a third of the people that attended were Universalists. So that probably is another smoking gun for these beloved brothers and sisters. But I don't know. It seems a little weird. But anyway, we digress. And so the third paragraph says, Leighton Flowers, a Southern Baptist pastor. Okay, so right there, Leighton preaches, but I don't know if Leighton's a pastor. His official title is something to do with Texas Baptist, like Director of Evangelism or Apologetics or something like that. He's not really I'm not saying he's not a pastor, but he's known as director. He's known for his involvement with Texas Baptist as an organization, as a ministry. So, but I digress. It's one of those things. I feel like they need to be a little more precise with this sort of stuff. But again, digressions. I'm allowed it because, I mean, it's 2 o'clock. Wow. Thanks, Ethan. Now I'm all jibberty jabberty. Midnight or morning. So moving on to that, Leighton Flowers devotes the entirety of his ministry arguing against God's authority and right to choose and act how he pleases. I don't know any Wesleyan, Arminian, Provisionist, normal, boring Baptist, Free Will Baptist, Methodist, anyone who argues against God's authority and right to choose and act how he pleases. The whole point is, what does God choose to do and what is he pleased to do? And that's the entire question. If you are a Calvinist, then it's more on the display of divine power, which I find very interesting given how a lot of, at least folks within this side of the Christian family, tend to view power and power dynamics. Tend not to look very favorably upon it. Joined Nick Quint recently in a podcast already. I joined Leighton. I reached out to Leighton, and Leighton graciously invited me on. It's not a podcast, although I think it goes out. It started as a YouTube channel, so Soteriology 101 YouTube channel, not podcast, although it does have a podcast, titled Nick Quint on Divine Sovereignty and Human Freedom to Argue Against God's Sovereignty. So again, Jordan Peterson. This person, and there's no name attached to this, by the way, at least that I can see. It's put out by, quote, the name of the organization. So there's no person I can say, boy, they didn't do their homework. So I'll choose to just believe in the best that the whole organization bears a little bit of the brunt for just not being precise on anything they wrote here. I'm not arguing against God's sovereignty, although I do argue against certain reformed understandings of God's sovereignty. I think they are wrong in how they choose to define and explain divine sovereignty, or what I might call divine action, whether Old or New Testament. So it kind of just makes me chuckle a little bit. I don't think there's really much there. Ooh, there we go. Yeah, just making sure folks are there. Whoop, nope, cancel. There we go. And so I'm basically brought on to argue against God's sovereignty, which is like, well, that's not only begging the question, that's just lazy. That's just good. It's good old fashioned tribalism. The issue here isn't what was said in the podcast itself. It's the same rhetoric and thoroughly debunked arguments they always make. I mean, you can argue against, I suppose in some sense that's maybe precise, but you can argue against what someone says and it's not debunked. Like, I don't feel like what I said was debunked. I'm not aware of any responses to what was said or anything like that. Not to say they're not out there. But we did a pretty deep dive into the Greek text of John 1. And it wasn't really rhetoric. It was pretty boring exegetical stuff. That's kind of what I do. I'm not that flashy. I wish I had good rhetoric. Boy, I could make some money off that. But anyway, it's just one of those. It's essentially the biggest display of flexing I think I've seen. But the problem is the person flexing skipped leg day, so there's not a lot of foundation for what they're saying. The bigger issue here is that Leighton Flowers, who is supposed to believe and hold to the Southern Baptist Statement of Faith, which of course begs the question, it's which Southern Baptist Statement of Faith? Are we talking about 1963 or the 2000? I can't sign the 2000. I think it's a pretty, I'm not a complementarian, so I'm sorry I can't sign it, and I wouldn't sign it. I could sign the 1963. I think I could sign that. I don't think I have a problem with that. Leighton, as far as Texas Baptists go, you can hold to either one. They're actually Baptist on that question, which I find just mildly funny. Sorry again. I'm holding this right here. And then the final sentence of this has to go completely outside the realms of orthodoxy to find someone to defend his view. First off, Leighton and I don't agree. I believe in prevenient grace. Leighton, at least as far as I can tell, at least has a different way of understanding that. I think he's wrong. I think, all that sort of stuff, but I don't really see what the issue is there. Also, outside the realms of orthodoxy, the doctrine of hell, barring you look at the first 400, 500 years of the church, there's no statement really condemning it. The closest thing I can think of is one where Origen's views, or at least some sort of incipient Origenism, was condemned, rightly so. But as far as I know, neither view is condemned by councils. And of course, pardon my French, but I don't really care what happened in the 16th century or the 17th century. I care what happened in the first 2 centuries of the church. And I'll go up to Nicaea. Nicaea is where I'm like, yep, that's pretty good. I kind of like Nicaea. And so I don't know how I'm unorthodox. They just kind of assert this. And that's a problem, I think. And this is a good teaching moment. So sit back and put the hat on a little bit and sit back. Scratch. It's a good teaching moment. So, one, there's a genetic fallacy here, a guilt by association fallacy. There's also a lot of begging the question here. And so, if you're going to criticize someone's view, and you're going to operate with charity and good faith, you don't want to be involved in talking down or engaging in fallacious reasoning, which this does. And it's just I sent it to my wife. I just find it absolutely hysterical. It is so funny to me. I can't wait for her to read it in the morning when she wakes up. But in any case, just wanted to let y'all know that you are following a heretic, a matriarchist. I might need to make that my Twitter bio, by the way. Who is associated with Leighton Flowers. I don't think Leighton, and Leighton, if he knows my name, God bless him, because that interview is from a while ago. But in any case, there is so much in the church that needs to be looked at seriously, and that is how we engage people that believe differently with us, and how quick we are to often draw dividing lines between us. There are certain things I do think are outside the bounds of Christian theology or the Christian life. Being a Calvinist is not outside that, which I find funny. Or maybe I was predestined to find that funny. But in my mind, you can be a Calvinist and be completely you're completely a Christian in my mind. You're wrong, but maybe that's where the line is. You're allowed to be wrong and still be a Christian. So, in any sense, I'm going to read the title to you again before I close out, and thank you for anyone who decided to spend a few moments here. Leighton Flowers joins matriarchist who took wife's last name to argue against God's sovereignty. You're darn right I took my wife's last name, and I would happily do it again, although it made getting a new driver's license very difficult. So people want to talk about sacrificing and submission for their spouse or their wife, in my case. Yep, that's how you do it. And so, yeah. And I'm not going to get into egalitarianism, complementarianism. I doubt they've read much on the subject based on how they argue or what they think. But all this to say, I found this. I thought it was funny. I wanted to share it with y'all. Hopefully, maybe I'll put a link to it. Although there's a part of me that's like, boy, do I screenshot it? Should I screenshot it? Anyone who's watching, should I screenshot it just in case I go back and change it? I kind of want to, but I kind of just, I don't know. Anyway, this is very funny. I can't. I'm glad I was here to share it with you. I'm sorry if this woke any of you up, but you have a wonderful morning, and maybe, yeah, Michelle, I wouldn't be shocked if they were like, oh, change, make sure that this all works. And it's like, oh, okay, I'm being petty, but I mean, the whole thing is petty. But in any sense, make sure y'all go to a church in the morning if you are a churchgoer, whether that's in person or, sorry, I'm scratching my foot. There we go. Make sure to go to church in the morning, whether digital or virtually or in person, whatever your county or state permits. And hope you have a wonderful Sunday. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May His face shine upon you. And, oh, you going to come see me? See if the cat comes and sees me. Hey, come here. No? You got stage fright? You look happy. You want to come see? You sure? You sure? Dad reeks of desperation. And that's why you don't want to come. Yeah. Okay. Well, apparently that's it. Anyway, y'all have a blessed one. Oh my gosh, I could have done it like this. I know what I'm doing next time. This is awesome. I'm totally in a world filled with darkness. One organization sought to slander someone with a sense of humor. Anyway, y'all have a good one. I don't know why I'm still keeping y'all up. Take care. God bless. Go to church. Bye.